How many of you are building your first business? Yay! That's the best feeling in the world. Bottle it and savor it. But also roll up your sleeves. Let's get to work.
If you feel stuck because of money, there are other ways to go about it.
It's so important for us to have these conversations as women, have them openly, because that is how we all go further faster.
I only raised a couple $100,000. I won't say that. I raised a couple $100,000.
Thank you. Good edit.
Thank you.
Let me just tell you, I'm a little bit mad that I wasn't on the first round of funding because you didn't tell me about it.
Scared me.
I know, but I like making money too, Lori.
I went to every successful white man I knew. And I said, Connor, how would you answer this question?
If you understand where the money is flowing in and where the money is flowing out, it's literally a handbook telling you where to go next.
I get asked a lot for money, and the very first thing I ask any company that pitches me is,
How many of you have a dream that part of what you feel is limiting you is money? How do I pay for it? How do I get this off the ground, right? Because we're always kind of like balancing that, okay, if I had more money, I could scale faster to make more money, but it's funny, I needed the money before I can scale. So we're gonna invite to the stage in just a moment women who have scaled all different types of businesses in all different ways, from bootstrapping to raising a lot of money. And we're just gonna have a really open conversation about some things to think about and consider, maybe even to expand your mind. Maybe you've never even considered taking on investments or different strategies for actually scaling, like practically how to finance your big dream. So I'm gonna have them introduce themselves once they come to the stage. So I'm just gonna welcome our finance panel to join me. I wanted to have your beautiful faces out here while we do the introductions, because you really are the most brilliant women that I know. Sometimes I'll get a text from Veena and we're just like having this casual conversation. I'm like, this is like a woman who's literally done over $1 billion in real estate transactions, like just texting me casually. You know, it's like those moments where you're like, wow, I really have expanded, you know? So I'm gonna go down the line and have you introduce yourselves, and then I'll get to share a little bit of who you each are for me. To my immediate left is just one of my soul sisters of all soul sisters, Kelly Kussman. You've probably met her at the Kayla Gray booth. Yes?
Smell great.
I know. Veena is obsessed with Undeniable, which is our signature Powerhouse Women scent. We created it in 2023.
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years ago?
2 years ago,
Because, and specifically because scent can be such a powerful anchor for an experience like this. It's actually a really powerful way to transport yourself back to a powerful moment or experience. You know how, like, does anyone have like a cologne that your high school boyfriend used to wear and you like smell it? Or what are all the Victoria's Secret like body scents and it transports you back to Love Spell? Love Spell?
Love spell.
I digress. So Kelly has an incredible background and story. And I will never forget the first conversation we had when she was first launching Kayla Gray and making a really, really bold pivot. Fast forward to now, you hit a huge milestone. You're on track to hit a huge milestone in your business, and you can decide how much you want to share about that. But I'd love for you to just do a quick intro and share a little bit of that journey.
Yeah, so my name's Kelly Kussman, founder of Kayla Gray Fragrance. So, thank you, ladies. So Kayla Gray is a transparent ingredient fragrance company that I launched in 2020. Everybody always asks where the name came from. Kayla Gray was actually the name of a baby my husband and I lost in 2017. I actually suffered from a ruptured ectopic pregnancy and almost lost my life, as well as our first baby. And then it actually happened again in 2018. I had another ruptured ectopic pregnancy. And it was really after those two moments that I realized life is so short and it's not guaranteed, and what the hell am I doing with my days? And so decided to leave my big fancy corporate job and start a small business. And so here we are, 4.5 years later, and I've been bootstrapping until this year. And I'm excited to say we're gonna hit multiple 7 figures this year. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to have Kelly sit on the panel because the majority of her growth has been bootstrap. She didn't take on any outside money. And that, especially for a product-based business, is really, really hard. So we'll circle back to questions in a moment. Veena, I'm gonna throw it to you.
All right, hello. Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited. This is the most amazing room I've been in a very, very, very long time.
You're in a lot of rooms with dudes too, right?
So many rooms with dudes. Like so many. I was so my girlfriend Tiffany Moon came with me and we were walking over to the room and I was like, the only thing I don't love about women's events, I have so much pressure to dress up, and I am like the least stylish person that I know.
You always say that, and then you look like this, so
I'm in literally a black dress and a pair of heels. There's like no additional jewelry, no accessorizing, none of that. I do have Kayla Gray on though now.
you keep it classic.
So I'm Veena Jetti. I am the founder of a company called Vive Funds. I'm on the real estate side of private equity. Like you said earlier, I've bought and sold over $1 billion of multifamily assets in my own portfolio.
$1 billion with a B.
Yeah, big deal.
Yeah. Just in case you didn't hear it.
Yeah, and actually in Phoenix is one of my favorite assets that we've bought because in 2023, we bought a property called Arcadia Cove, 432 doors. We bought it for $131.5 million. And I'm really proud of it because it was the deal that took me over the $1 billion mark, but more importantly, it was the largest all-woman-led transaction in the entire country that year. So thank you. I'm also a mom to twin daughters that are 6 going on 26. So, you know, that's the hardest thing I've done is be a mom. And I am an entrepreneur, philanthropist. I invest into many different companies. And now I'm in a moment of stepping into leadership for women specifically. I'd always been scared to speak directly to and only to women because the world I'm in is a bunch of dudes and I didn't want to alienate people. But then I realized, like, I actually don't care if I alienate men. So I now am just kind of honoring that truth for me. And I mean, like, in the last, 2 weeks, it's very new for me. So we'll see what happens with it. But thank you for having me here. I'm very excited.
So honored to have you. Next up is Janice, and I was sharing with Janice backstage. We did a podcast together in Austin, and this woman walks in the door, and with her comes this energy that I just have very rarely experienced in someone I'm meeting for the first time. I felt the immediate girlfriend energy that is like the vibe check of anyone that I want to keep in my life. And I told her in that moment, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to have her speak at Powerhouse. And I was like, I haven't even had a conversation with her yet on this podcast, but because I knew your background and your story and your experience, and what I love, and we'll dig into a little bit, is you're kind of on the other side of what so many celebrate, which is she is an exited founder. So I'm going to have you just share a little bit of your journey and story, and then we'll get to circle back with more questions from there.
Sure. Good afternoon, superstars. How's it going? How are you feeling? Good? Excellent. It is an honor to spend this afternoon with you. Thank you for having me. So I'm an operator and a big product nerd. I have been enjoying my conversations with all of you because within the first 5 minutes, one of my superpowers is hearing what you're building, hearing your vision, and then I cannot help myself. Sorry to those of you that I just hard Enneagram 2'd on you, trying to help immediately. But I have this thing where I can hear your business, and I'm like, okay, that's how we're going to pull those psychological triggers for their top of funnel go-to-market strategy. Okay. I'm like, this is how we're gonna take their business from 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 1,000, 1,000 to 100,000, then hopefully billions, like this superstar next to me. Oh my God, how impressive, right? And I do that with a few different skills under my entrepreneurial umbrella. I am very analytical. I love data. I really do, much to my own detriment because it takes me 50 years to plan for a trip because of it. But I really do enjoy it. But then I'm also pair that with behavioral science, PMP, I'm PMP certified, so very organized, but also a very proud daughter of immigrants who constantly taught me, figure it out. You made it. You are a byproduct of how many miracles, all of us collectively, to be here right now. you can figure it out. And so I used all of that to build my first company back in 2017 called The Mentor Method. It was a software company that matched women, people of color, and LGBTQ+ professionals to mentors inside where they worked, kind of like an eHarmony model. So it was fun. We had customers including Amazon, secured a 3-year contract with the Department of Education. Through that 7-year journey, became the 94th Black woman in United States history to have raised over $1 million in institutional funding. Thank you. Thank you. With amazing support from investors like Google, billionaire Tim Draper, and others. Hi, Tim, if you ever watch this. And then after that, continued building out the business. The business was acquired in 2022, which made me Austin's first Black woman to have a venture-backed tech exit, which was huge. And thank you. Your applause means a lot to me. I really do appreciate that. But when I was building my first business, none of that was the goal. I was so angry at corporate America, and I didn't have a vehicle to channel that anger. I knew that it wouldn't help me pay off my student loans if I said, you know what, Connor? That's it. Microaggression me one more time in this meeting. I dare you. Having that approach to the bias, just how unfair the corporate ladder felt for me as a young woman in my 20s, trying to break through so many different ceilings that are either visible or invisible, and not knowing the right cheat codes or the right people. And I knew, being as resilient as I am, if I was facing that, then there were millions of other professionals who were also facing that. And so I just wanted a way to channel what I was feeling, what I was experiencing in that moment at scale, and I'm grateful for the way that it turned out. And then after that, wrote a book on mentorship, and have been advising, investing, and really enjoying this season.
Yeah.
So good. That's incredible.
And you remember her. There was one point where I was like, Lori, want to be on this panel? Lori, want to be on this panel too? You want to interview Kim Perrell?
I was like,
it was
put
at
me
the
in,
point where
coach.
she's
If
like,
I'm here, I absolutely want to be up here.
I was like, I think I'm going to be tired on day 3. Can you come and be my emotional support friend?
I am so recharged being up here with everyone, and every time I sit on this couch, I'm like, whoa, another incredible group of women that I get to sit up here with. I am in a full, my 8-year-old, fantasy right now, you guys. This is are you kidding me? This is so cool. So thank you all, and thanks for providing this for us.
I mean, I was so excited to have Lori here because, she's bootstrapped a lot of different businesses, but then launching glōci in the way that she did, which originated as Light Pink, raising $2 million from 54 female investors, and I'm so proud to be one of them. When your friends are doing cool things and then they get to help you live a dream of yours, to be at a place where I could financially invest in another woman's dream was the most mind-blowing experience that I've ever had. And so what do you want to share about your story from this conversation that we're preparing to have as it relates to financing and funding your dreams?
For me, it is really what is on the table for you is going to be far different when you have this conversation today and they blow the lid off of what you think you can do. So I think this conversation is one of them. They've all been important, but in terms of possibility, to be present in this conversation today, to know that if you feel stuck because of money, there are other ways to go about it. So I know that majority of you in here aren't actually even allowing yourself to think of your biggest dream. You don't even ask yourself the big question of, if I had all the money, all the time, and all the network in the world, which was the exact question I asked myself, what would I actually be doing? Because all of your dreams are pending your current skill set, network, and what you think is possible for yourself. And so what we all want to do today is there's a whole other world that if you had all the time, all the network, and all the funding, what would you actually be doing? Because with that funding, you can build teams around you, and they can prop you up into your zone of genius, and that looks very different. You don't have to learn all of the things or know it perfectly. And I think that's where we really stop ourselves. So what I want to share about where I'm at is that I never would have thought that I was even capable of raising money. I know I told you this before, but I did not graduate high school. My story was that I was terrible with numbers. And when I got connected to the right people who could really help me with that, teach me how to do it, but also pretty much essentially lock arms with me in the process of doing it, so much became possible. And now it really feels like a podium I want to sit on, that it's not necessarily glamorous to fundraise or have investors, but it also is, if you have a big dream, it's necessary to have to do it a lot of the times. So I'm actually in another fundraise right now because I'm stepping into another level with glōci, where I've realized that I really do want to take it to that next level, and I've found my team that I'm going to scale with. And so I want to take a lot of cash and I want to inject it into the marketing and really getting out there in a big way. So I'm actually in another big growth, emotional growth phase for myself of, okay, we got it out, and now there's so many different levels. So now I'm in a whole other level of, okay, we're doing this. We're gonna play even bigger now. Okay, I'm feeling it. So I'm glad even just to be, I'm gonna kind of sit a little closer to all of these women, hoping I get some magical dust
Yeah,
off
just hope
with
it
them,
rubs
so.
off. So I have a question for each of them that I came in prepared with, and then we're going to open the floor for questions from you, because we want to make this as tangible and specific to what you want to hear. But there's some really key things about each of your stories that I thought we could start with in order to bring anyone along on the ride, the conversation we're going to have, no matter what stage of business they're at. So I actually want to kind of go back to the earlier stages for you, Kel, because you have bootstrapped for the biggest part of your build, and you are one of the most organized and just strategic people that I know. So if you could go back, what would you say to someone who is in those early stages? What should they prioritize first if they're scaling specifically a product-based company and they're bootstrapping right now? They have limited funds. How do they maximize it? And what are the top 3 priorities that they should focus on?
So for me, when I was building my business, as you stated, bootstrapping a product-based business is not easy because you need inventory. You need inventory to make sales. Inventory costs money. And so before we even launched a product with Kayla Gray, my first priority was building a community, finding other entrepreneurs. I came from corporate. And so I knew nobody that was an entrepreneur other than my dad, who launched an adhesive distribution business. So he sold the glue that goes on labels on cans. And so he didn't even know what social media is, So I didn't really have anybody that I could talk to. And so the first thing that I did was build a community. I really wanted to go out and talk to people about, what do they love about scent? What is frustrating to them about scent? If you could build a dream business around fragrance, what would it look like? I really wanted to bring people along the journey of building this business right along with me. So it was really about building community, finding other women that could support me on my journey. One of the things I did really early on was do collaboration events and partnerships and get in front of other people's audiences, because I didn't have a big audience when I started. I had 100 people that were following me on social media, 100 people on my personal page. We still don't have a huge following on social media. So building community and making sure that when we did launch, our customers knew that we were completely obsessed with them. Everything comes back to the customer experience. We are a fragrance company that has such emotion behind it. And so for me, it was building a community that actually wanted to buy the product before I spent the money to create the product to launch. Getting immediate customer feedback was something that was really important to me. The second thing that was important as I was starting to build the business was find mentors and advisors for my company so that I didn't make costly mistakes, because I didn't have the money or the funding to make costly mistakes. And so I spent a ton of time diving into, quite frankly, LinkedIn, combing through a whole bunch of different companies that I had so much admiration and respect for, and finding on the other side of those companies who are the real operators in this business. Not the founders, the beautiful people that are all over social media. Who's the CEO? Who's the COO? Who's the CFO? Who's the director of ops? Who's the director of marketing? And I really wanted to make connections with people that have done it before me, so that I couldn't afford to make mistakes in my business, because I was paying for every single penny and every single dollar that came into the business. And then the third thing that I really did focus on is when I did start to spend some money, is that every dollar that went out, I understood where it went, and it had to make a return on investment. You have to be so scrappy when it comes to dollars when you're bootstrapping a business. And so Linz knows, I mean, numbers are like my jam. I can pull numbers and do analysis all day long. And really, if you understand where the money is flowing in and where the money is flowing out, it's literally a handbook telling you where to go next in your business. So those are the three things that I really focused on as I was trying to scale and bootstrap this company to a point where, hey, now we can start having more fundraising conversations.
Yeah, and I also want to mention, because when people come to me specific with product-based business questions, Kelly is the person that I direct them to, because you do on occasion offer different mentorship options. You offer the ability, even like when we were doing our Powerhouse Women pop-up for our merch, we booked some consulting time with Kelly and had her walk us through like the POS system, and because we're not a product-based business, so there are a lot of things that we didn't know how to do, and I want to make sure to mention that because it's a huge resource, specifically to the Powerhouse Women community, because this woman lives and breathes and loves this community just like I do, and wants you to win. I'm going to come to Lori next because building on this conversation about bootstrapping. We've bootstrapped so many of the things that we've built, and then you launch a product company and decide to fundraise. How do you make that decision? The different things that you're building, what are the different ways to fund it? What had you decide to raise money for your product company?
Okay, so when I was going from events, books, digital courses, things like that, in the beginning, it was really like we were going to see what kind of money we could make, then we're going to invest a lot of that back into like ads and different things like that and into the marketing. And so it really was, okay, we're gonna make money, and then we're gonna make that money make some more money, and we're gonna see how we can grow that. And that's how we started our whole career. I also got into network marketing, and network marketing was a huge way for me to bootstrap a ton of the things that I was doing. I viewed it as my bootstrapping money, and that really motivated me. I was like, okay, I love this company, I love what we're doing, but I'm very multifaceted. I wanna take this money and I wanna start these other companies. So when I started thinking about a product, I knew nothing about it. When I say I knew nothing about it, I mean, I didn't even have friends who had products at this point. Like, it was not in the conversation whatsoever. So I just started to really do a lot of research, start changing my network. And I think this has really been my secret sauce to all the just fundraising and pivoting and all the different things, is that every time I want to go learn something else, I go and look for the rooms where they're already doing it. So I totally changed the people I'm hanging out with. I changed the podcasts I'm listening to, like on a dime. When I knew I wanted to do products, I went from personal development podcasts to full-on founder podcasts. And like overnight, I started ordering business books, product books. I was like a different person overnight, interested in different things. I was DMing different girls to go to lunch. It was like all products girls. I was getting different, I don't know if you noticed, but if you go back to like 2019, I flipped from personal development guests to full-on founders. That was it, because I wanted to learn what I needed to do. And so within these conversations, you can literally start using all the things that you're doing and educate yourself in that way. And so when I was deciding how I wanted or to learn about when I needed to fund, it was really diving into these podcasts, meeting with different women, asking what I would need. And I was like, also was learning about investing and starting to hang out with women who are on this panel literally, and understanding that your money should always be making you money. So if you want to be putting a product out and it needs a lot of money, you should actually be fundraising for that while your money makes money. Because if you really want to understand how money works, you always want your money to be making money. Yep. So the investment for someone else, that money for them will hopefully, in the future be making money for them as well. So that was really the point where I was like, okay, I knew I needed a large amount of money to get to where I wanted to go. And I was in all of these conversations, and that really spurred that. I think I'm gonna need some money. And also, I will add one last thing. For what I knew I was stepping into, I knew I needed such a massive level of accountability, because I knew that it was gonna be hard. And I knew, because my life was already in a comfortable place, that if I didn't have the accountability of other women, I think I would have quit about 100 times over. My investors have actually kept me from quitting, even though it has been one of the hardest challenges of my life, having investors, just learning how to kind of hold that. That has held me to the flames so much when I've wanted to quit, and I'm so freaking grateful that I did that for myself.
Yeah, it's just been so cool as you've shared. You share a lot on your podcast too, but we've gotten to have so many beautiful conversations about the process. And it goes back to the accountability piece we were talking about before. That's one way to hold yourself accountable, massively.
Yeah. We're all like, yeah, we're not getting out.
So Janice, you said it yourself, you're an operator. I felt Kelly's ears perk up, fellow operator. And when we're talking about scaling, yes, there's the financing at part, but then there's the whole operational systems side of things. So if you go back to, whether you want to speak to this from scaling the mentor method or just in general, what you see in the businesses that you can't help but break down what they could be doing, what would you say is like the operational system or habit that you either wish you would have implemented sooner, or you think if more of us implemented sooner, it would help us scale faster?
Yeah, so through the lens of fundraising, yeah? Or
It doesn't have to be, no. Just through, we just want your beautiful brain. Take us to church, operations church.
So, welcome, classes in session. So, I think, so I'll take it two approaches. So just on the fundraising side of things, when you start fundraising, it is like you are all operators. Yes, we are entrepreneurs, but under that portfolio of the entrepreneurship label, we all have to be operators, especially when you're jumping into the arena, which I love, of fundraising. So some of the things that I did that may be helpful for you, how many of you are building your first business? Yay, congratulations. It's the best feeling in the world. Bottle it and savor it, but also roll up your sleeves. Let's get to work. Yeah. So here's some of the things that I did. I wanted to know what I was getting into, not to build fear or scarcity, but to really understand what the hurdles were going to be. The studies at that time, it was 2016, 2017, McKinsey, all of the big management consulting firms were doing a lot of studies around the inequity around fundraising and access to capital for women. I read that and said, yes, I have been a woman in corporate America, so none of this surprises me. But I read those articles to understand what questions investors were asking, why women were running into these hurdles. Was it because they were going to predominantly male saturated investment funds, or is it because we just didn't have enough DEI funds, or like what were the problems that I needed to solve for myself as it related to my business? And then from there, I actually started building out my script of some of those questions. So typically women are asked, well, how do you know? Why are you so confident about the direction of your business? How do you know that it's going to be $1 billion business, $100 million business, whatever the case may be, compared to their male counterparts? So I said, great. In that case, let me write down how I would actually answer all of these questions that seem to be hurdles for access to funding. Then I went to every successful white man I knew. And I said, Connor, how would you answer this question? If the question is, how do I get my business to $100 million? And this is how I'm answering it. Or if the question is, how am I going to build out my team once I raise this 1.6 million or however much I was raising at the time? And then I would hear their confidence, their clarity, the way that they would take my humming and hawing and maybe some accidental ways in which I was discrediting myself through my word choices. Not on purpose. I have just never seen that much money in my life. I was raised, very humble beginnings, pretty, middle class. Like, we love a TJ Maxx, we loved Goodwill. Like, we made it work. So the idea of raising $1 million and then raising beyond that was very terrifying for me. So I got their input on how to phrase it. Then I went to every successful woman that I knew and said, hey girl, okay, so Connor said that I should say it this way, but what did you actually do? And they were like, great, this is a good first step, but, and then we would get into the finer details that I'm going to share with you now. Always make sure you have your financials as something in your appendix. If you know that you're going to have a greater talk track around how you're building your team, your runway, use of funds, every dollar should have a job, so make sure you employ every single penny and you know where it's going. and make sure that you can actually speak to that. In addition to that, have a tab on your laptop or however you're sharing where you can actually, in real time, have an engaging conversation with your financial model with those investors and say, hey, okay, so right now, we think that, our cost of goods is going to be X amount, and we know that maybe next month, we'll acquire 5 customers, let's say at $10,000. But let's say with your investment, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, we can actually reduce our cost of customer acquisition, up the number of customers that we're acquiring, and bam, look at our revenue. They will also have questions, but being able to be a woman in control of her numbers, especially in spaces where they think it's sweet and almost a surprise, even though you're an entrepreneur and a business owner, it helps build confidence, because when you're in the room and you are the business owner, you're the only one in the arena. Like, you are the one that is facing that emotional just process of it. I think that's good on the fundraising side. Just in terms of operations, think about your customer and pour into them. Think about every psychological trigger, why they would become obsessed with you. It's not because you chose the right template in Canva. I'm sorry to tell you. I too have wasted hours of my own time trying to find the right font. They do not care. What they care about is how you are going to help them. What is that I am going to the emergency room level of pain that your business is helping to resolve for that customer? And how are you doing it? How are you making their lives better? How are you saying, I see you, I care about you, and this is my way of pouring back into you with the skills that God, source, universe has given me to build this business and birth something that will make us connected for however long you are, within my sign-up strategy or my GTM or whatever part of the funnel, until we actually are a customer and the one that built the business. I'll stop there because I know we have several other people, but I think that's just top of mind for the ops side.
I forgot I was hosting. Okay, snap back. Veena.
Yes.
Hi.
I don't want
Hi,
to
my
follow these ladies.
No, my goodness.
imposter syndrome is raging right now.
That's actually one of my favorite things about Veena. I remember when I first interviewed you, that was just, other than we shared fries, and then she's like, but we're getting ranch to dip them in, right? And I was like, do we just become best friends?
Yes.
But when you spoke about how imposter syndrome is very real for you, that's not what I'm going to ask you about. But it's always so refreshing when you mention
tuck it
that.
back in then.
$1 billion and still imposter syndrome. That's so expansive in itself, right? We're all the same. Yeah.
We are the
and
same.
such a boss, still in the midst of
Yes.
all of it. So I would love to hear you speak to what investors actually look for beyond the numbers, because you also are an investor.
Yes.
And, whether to back a founder or not, how can a founder who doesn't have a track record stand out and present themselves as credible and trustworthy? What you can speak from what you've learned or what you personally use to vet founders.
Okay, I'll speak a little bit to both. So on the fundraising side, I raise exclusively for multifamily and real estate deals. So across my portfolio, we've raised probably a little over $400 million total. And that is from non-institutional investors, meaning it's people like you and I. It's high net worth, high income professionals. Our average check size as of last year is about $178,000. So we're not talking about a $1 million investment from 10 different investors to raise $10 million. I also invest into other companies. I'm on many different cap tables. I think Lori has her cap table open now for a second round of funding.
She's open. Look at what Veena does. I just have to say, she's your girl's girl. She was backstage. She's like, I'm going to say it if you don't. So anyway.
She wasn't going to say it because let me just tell you, I'm a little bit mad that I wasn't on the first round of funding because you didn't tell me about it.
Scared me.
I know, but I like making money too, Lori.
Should I move and let you two have this conversation?
Continue,
No,
Veena.
it's better that you're in between.
Veena's deflecting. Continue what you're saying.
So all this to say, the reason why I'm interested in a second round of glōci is because when I'm investing, I really care about who the founders are. So as of maybe 4 years ago, I made the decision that I am no longer investing into companies or businesses that do not have diversity in the decision-making level or above. Thank you. And it's a little bit self-serving when I say this because I'm raising 2 little brown girls. And I've been in so many rooms where my imposter syndrome was raging, and the men in the room were discounting and dismissing my ability and my worth. The very first real estate private equity company that I started with partners, my male colleagues told me that my role in raising capital was not as valuable as his role in analyzing a spreadsheet. Yeah, that's what I should have said, is get out of here. But I didn't know what my worth was. I didn't know what my value was. And I didn't see anybody that looked like me doing the thing that I was setting out to do. And so I didn't even have anybody that I could like turn to for inspiration or for feedback or for mentorship or sponsorship. And so I was just kind of figuring it out all on my own. And, you know, we've made the money. We've done a really good job of that. You know, we don't worry about paying our bills. I don't worry about my kids' expenses. My kids don't have to worry about their money. You know, they won the birth lottery. They're trust fund babies. And, you know, now we've reached the point of generational wealth. So then the question becomes, okay, what now? Because earning an extra $100K, $1 million, it's not going to fundamentally change my lifestyle. It is going to be used to create a legacy that I can be proud of. There's so many rooms and stages that I'm on where I get a lot of accolades and praise because I'm one of the few women, and definitely one of the few women of color, to do the things that I've done. My hope is that in 20-something years, when my daughters go out to find their place in the world, that what mommy did wasn't remarkable, because so many women are doing this.
100%.
So
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. So now the way I have gone about that, maybe it's like my micro-feminism, I don't know, but I get pitched a lot. I get asked a lot for money, which is good because I want to invest money. I want to make money, Lori. And so I get pitched a lot. And the very first thing I ask any company that pitches me is, show me your cap table and show me your C-suite or your director level and above. And if it's like 2 or 3 co-founders and they don't really have a big C-suite yet, that's fine. But then show me your board of advisors. And 95% of the time, I see all white men. And like, okay, that's great for you. I'm not investing. And they'll say, oh, but we're gonna make this much money and that much. And I was like, I don't care, respectfully. I don't care if I'm gonna be a bajillionaire from this investment, because the reality is you're not doing anything to change the landscape for my daughters, and I am not leaving this industry better than I found it.
100%.
And so, yeah, I'll kind of close the loop and land the plane here with, we have to put our money where our mouth is. It's out of alignment for me to say that I want to see change. I want my legacy to be that if I'm gonna be the first, I can't be the last. And I cannot be in alignment with that if then I turn around and only invest into white men-owned and run companies. And the reason this DEI at the top levels is so important to me is, well, number one, women founders just blow it out of the water compared to male co-founders, and less than 2% of VC funding goes to women-run companies. But by every metric that I care about as an investor, women are way better. And so I like making money, so I want to invest with women because they're more likely to make me more money. And secondly, I believe in working with the best. And if you have 8 people, 10 people, 15 people in your decision-making suite, and they're all white men, that tells me either you don't think women are part of the best, or you didn't look that hard for the best. And I don't like either of those answers because I disagree with the first, and the second is not interesting to me. So for me, that's why it's really important, and that's how I look at investing.
Yeah, I love that so much. All right, we're gonna turn it to you for some questions. So same rules apply as before. We'll try to keep these concise and actionable so that it can speak to as many people as possible. I see the first hand up over here.
My name is Megan. I am from Omaha. Thank you. And I'm the founder of a strategic business planning software called Dream Money, where we're helping women really understand their numbers and build the businesses that can fund their dreams.
Thank you.
Good job.
Welcome. My question, I have two, is along this founder journey, everyone has said to bootstrap for as long as possible. And I would love to know how you have decided that it's time to take on investment. And my second question, when taking on money, not all money is dream money. So what are the green flags you look for when taking on outside investment?
I can start that one. So the reason that we decided to take on funding this year is because our demand outpaced the cash we had in the bank. And I think for bootstrapped companies, that, for me, that is the metric. It's something that I can take tangibly to my investors and say, I have this much demand. I can't pay, for me as a product-based business, I can't pay to get the raw materials to do the production to actually meet those purchase orders. So it just gives me a little bit of leverage when you go to investors, when you have the demand in hand and just say, I just need money to meet this demand, and then that demand will continue to grow. So that for me was my metric for then going out to get investment. And for me determining who to get investment from, I was blessed with a 20-year career for a Fortune 500 company, and I was managing $2 billion of business at the time and was running an entire division that did analytics when a private equity firm came and bought my company. And so I was able to see kind of behind the scenes the types of cost-cutting methods and things that private equity was looking for. And so I know how closely you are in bed with those investors, and I wanted to make sure that the people that I was in bed with my company was somebody that was going to love and care about my company. I mean, nobody will ever care about your company as much as you do, but close to as much as you do, because at the end of the day, we both want to be successful and make money. And so for me, it took a long time to figure out whether I went the VC route or the angel route to raise. I only raised a couple $100,000. I won't say that. I raised a couple $100,000.
Thank you. Good edit.
Thank you. Not only, I raised a couple $100,000 to meet the inventory demand, but it was with people that I love and that are obsessed just as much as my company is, and can also give me strategic direction and skill to help me get to that even next level of raise in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So good.
Anyone else want to chime in on that one?
So for the fundraising process, I planned on bootstrapping until the very end. I was very inspired by Sarah Blakely's story, how she owned all of Spanx and everything that she built within that line of business. And then being a product person myself, I built the algorithm for that first company. Like, I did it all myself for a very long time because I had the skills, and thankfully that was the case. So I began fundraising when an investor actually reached out to me cold. And at first I thought it was spam, but I'm also very open to having a conversation. You know, early stage founder, everyone you meet is an opportunity to either learn about yourself, your business, or potentially open a door that source, universe, whomever is actually providing for you that you just need to be ready to receive, right? So I said, okay, Larry, let's have this conversation. And we discussed the business, and the timing aligned perfectly because we had just received 2 massive, massive contracts that my 3-person team was not going to be able to fulfill, just given the breadth and scope of the work, and also the technical requirements that would have allowed us to re-up it from a 6-figure contract to a much larger one. So at that point, the use case was there. You know, we had traction already. We had some very strong logos for proof of concepts. I had done multiple accelerator programs. I was already trained in entrepreneurship from MIT, strategic management from Harvard. It's like the bones were all there. We just needed some funding to help make sure that those early bets and those larger opportunities that we were very grateful to receive, we would actually stick those landings, and we did because of that. But as I was going through that process, I also built out a list of about 250 investors that I knew would be a fit based on values alignment, the other businesses in which they had invested in previously, none of my competitors, because get out of my sandbox, right? But I wanted to see that they at least invested in the similar thesis. So that would have been future of work, diversity, equity, and inclusion, enterprise SaaS at that larger scale. And then making sure that they were investing recently. I wanted investors who were very active within the last year. Then I also looked at mutual connections, because a warm intro always trumps something cold most of the time. If there's an opportunity to actually get to meet somebody through a warm intro, take it. So I started to try to figure out who I had mutual connections with and things. And then that was sort of how we moved the boat forward.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
Brilliant. Okay, who's up next?
Thank you guys so much. So I'm Essie. I'm the founder of Zam Jewelry, which is bold and empowering jewelry for women. All the pieces are designed by me.
Give it up for her.
And not to ramble on, but I feel like I just want to say how I'm just 2 weeks out of corporate for good.
Yes.
Because you guys are talking about that before, I just felt like I could relate. So,
Congratulations.
thank you.
She's free.
I've gone to a lot of events, whether they be pitch competitions or just like find investor type events. And I find that I'm always seeing investors who are looking for tech sort of startups or CPG type of startups. And so it's making me feel like, are there just not as many investors interested in things that are not that? The apparel space, the accessories where I am, or is it just me who's in the wrong, like am I just going to the wrong places, or am I not searching correctly, pretty much?
Great question.
Can we ask a question? How much are you raising?
Oh no, I haven't started. I'm not there yet.
Okay.
But I'm very interested, like I am bootstrapping still, and I want to reach the point where I feel like, I'm ready for that step. I don't feel like I have the numbers to prove it right now, because I was balancing the full-time work with the startup, which now I feel like I'm going to get to do everything I used as an excuse of why I can't do this, because I'm still working full-time and all that stuff. So now I feel like that's when I'm going to get to make that proof case. But I would eventually I feel like with this type of business, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if I can really scale it without investors. Like, I don't know if I would love to bootstrap as long as possible, but it's more the thought that I don't know if I can take the business to where I want it to be without investors, which is what's making me think about, are the prospects even good for my type of business?
Yeah.
Okay, I have immediate thoughts for you. So my first thought is, if you know that you are ready or almost ready to start fundraising, it's time to start really drilling down into your numbers. I think both of these two ladies really emphasize the importance of knowing every dollar in and every dollar out. So knowing your sources and uses is going to be really important. So I do a lot of consulting for capital raising strategy. And part of the reason is exactly this, because I see so many times founders take capital before they really need to. And the problem is when you lose equity, you're giving up control of your company. And so that's why we say bootstrap as long as possible. It sucks, it's hard, you're gonna be sacrificing so much, but the longer you can maintain control till your top line and your bottom line revenue can get as far as possible, the better off you're gonna be. And this is tried and true across many different industries. So what I would say is, depending on how much capital you're raising, there's different avenues for you to go. Personally, and again, this is like without actually seeing your numbers, your business, or anything like that, knowing like very, very little information, I would almost be looking at going like a debt route first before getting angels, before getting VC funding.
Do you want to clarify what you mean by that?
Yes, sorry. Yes, thank you. So getting debt, like getting a line of credit from the bank. The SBA does a lot of lending for these types of scenarios. So making sure, so if you have a business and you're thinking about going out and getting capital, Google, like go to ChatGPT and put in your information and say, hey, I want to be bankable. What do I need to do in order to be bankable? Because you need your financials. If you think like your Zelle screenshots are going to be what covers the basis, it's not. Right? It's not. And it's the reality of taking on investors is there, and you should know these numbers anyway, whether you have investors or not. But I think priming yourself to be bankable, going to a bank, getting a line of credit, and then utilizing that line of credit first if the amount is really small. If you need $1 million, then we're having a different conversation than if you need 50,000 or 100,000. The second thing is, if you're going to go to VC funding, it is going to be a different level of financial acumen that you will be required to learn quickly and be confident in. I personally do a lot of angel investing. So for me, I enjoy being more hands-on with the companies that I invest in. I like to be more of a strategic investor than anything else. But if you're going for like an angel round, for example, and you're raising, let's say $100,000, and that's what you need, there's so many different ways you can raise those funds. You could do what's called like a Reg CF, which is a regulation crowd fund. And there are certain stipulations and limitations, but you can raise up to $5 million in a calendar year on a Reg CF. The key is before you raise any capital or say anything to anyone, you get yourself a securities attorney. You can send me a DM on Instagram if you want to get the contact information for my securities attorney that we've been working with. His name's Nick McGrew. He's great. But the reason you want that is because there are certain things that you could do without realizing that you're violating relying on that exemption. So all of this to say, if you're gonna raise from individuals like 100 grand, there's so many different options to do it. And this is true. I would love to hear if you have different perspectives on it, but the larger the check, the easier the investor to manage. The smaller the check, the more you will babysit that investor. Don't do it. Yep. It will not be worth your sanity. Like my $25,000 and $50,000 investors from when we first started, I hear from them every few days, every few weeks, and they're like, "Oh, well, you know, I'm just trying to be a prudent investor," and I'm like, I'm chasing down an investor I owe $3 million to because he won't pick up his phone. Okay, so the larger the check, the better of an investor they generally are. So all of that to say, I think you have a little bit of work before you start really trying to plan the capital strategy and understanding what you actually need and why you need it. And then I would look at debt first because it's much better to take on debt than it is to take on an investor early stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also want to add that all of us in here should be starting to work on being the person that people would invest in. Because your first round is probably going to be your friend's family and their friends and their family. And it will be. So angels are like your friends and family and people in your network. So everyone asks me, how are you finding investors? I have worked so hard on building my network, and they've all come by way of podcasting, podcast guests, their friends, people who have recommended and said, hey, you know, this company's great, but Lori's someone I would invest in because look at her track record. So if you're on social, if I'm an investor and I want to invest in your company, if I don't see you consistent on social, like talking about your company or doing different things for your company, or like that girl is hustling, no one's going to invest in that. So everybody in here should look at your stuff and say, would I invest in my company? Am I showing up like this? Because that's actually such a telltale sign of, will the company actually work or not? Even just bootstrapped. So I'm working so hard right now to look at what I'm doing and be like, oh, I'm not showing up for glōci every single day. And this week, literally, I was like, okay, I need to literally show up every single day and talk about my company. And so it's going to be the game changer for when you go to raise money, because it's going to come from your network. And when people go and look at what you're doing, they're like, oh, you want to bet on this girl. Yeah, like the jewelry's great, but look at her. Look at who she is. And that is what majority of everybody told me in my first round and this second round. They're like, oh, look at your track record. Okay, we're gonna stick with you because you don't quit. You just won't stop. I'm like, I won't. Yeah. So I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm just not gonna stop. So I think everyone in here, that's the goal.
That's so well said. Does that help?
Yeah, that was
Yes.
super helpful.
Thank you,
so
SC.
much.
Okay, give her a round of applause. We have time for one more question.
I'm Amanda. I am from Georgia.
Hi, Amanda.
Wow, it's nerve-wracking being on a mic. I own a boutique day spa, and I've done everything like debt-free on my own and scaled very fast. So the building that we're in now, we've outgrown it. I have a daytime shift, a nighttime shift. Like, it's done. My question, I wrote it down so I can be fast. For a service-based business, what are the most realistic funding paths that I should take?
You know, I think if we even kind of go through some of the things that were mentioned today, you know, looking into some of the different debt options. We haven't really put this one on the table yet, but crowdfunding. You know, sites like I Fund Women or Kickstarter, depending on how much you're actually raising, going back to what Veena said earlier, and I'll pass it to you girls. What was the consensus over
like
here?
what she said earlier.
Well, no, but what would you add on top of that for specifically service-based businesses?
Yeah, you know, I go back, I think it's kind of the similar response that I gave her personally, and I think it's whenever you can go for debt, actually better than debt is grants. Grants is better. So women qualify for a whole lot of grants, and women of color qualify for even more. And the SBA has a lot of different loan programs that will support it's the Small Business Association. And I bought a bank last year. It's
Casual.
No big deal.
like, okay, I have a point.
It took my brain a second to register what she was saying.
We bought Monterey County Bank in Monterey, California, and we're the largest SBA lender in the Monterey area of California. But I say all this to say I sat down with the operating partner last week, and we were talking about different ways to fund businesses because they have a large family office that invests into various entities. And one of the things that we talked about a lot is how underutilized SBA loans actually are, because they're so well packaged to meet the needs of small businesses if you can qualify for it. And so what I would say is look at SBA loans, look at debt like lines of credit. You can go to your local banks and say, hey, if I bring my deposits to you, are you going to give me a line of credit? That's how I started with real estate investing without other people's money. Is I went to my local bank and I said, hey, I'm willing to bring all of my business deposits here, but I need a line of credit and I need you to not have any say in what I use to invest in. And they said, okay, we're not going to do that, but we'll give you, I think they gave me like $1 million in credit, but I could only use it to buy certain types of real estate at the time, which worked for what I needed. So you can establish these types of relationships. Also, like, I hate to say this, but like credit cards are another really good way if you don't need that.
Well, even like I have a line of credit through my American Express business card because what I'm doing is essentially similar, adjacent to service-based business, but hosting an event, I pay all the money up front, and then I collect the ticket sales as they come in. So I use my line of credit all the time.
Yeah. Line of credit is a great way. And you can get a line of credit from investors too. You don't have to only raise equity. You can raise debt on your company, and you can go to your neighbor and be like, hey, you have $100,000 sitting in your 401k, roll it over to a solo 401k and then give me a line of credit. And instead of making, you know, whatever, 7, 10%, whatever the S&P 500 is at, you can say, I'm going to pay you 12%, or I'll pay you 10% annualized and I'll give you a point in and a point out. So like you give them an extra 1% when they make the investment and a 1% extra when you pay them back. So there's different ways that you can structure debt too, so that you're not taking on a lot of equity investors early on.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Was this expansive? You know, the intention of this conversation was to open your mind up to new possibilities. It's okay if you're not there yet. It's okay if you're never gonna be at the point that you're looking to raise capital. But if nothing else, it's so important for us to have these conversations as women, have them openly, because that is how we all go further faster. And I'm so just deeply honored to be surrounded by powerhouse women like you. I'm just sitting up here like, my friends are so brilliant, really. And these are women who are just so generous and so giving and want others to win. So can we give it up for them? We're gonna take our little photo with Kaylee.